you had the privilege and pleasure of playing for England several times against the old enemy. You got your call up in 1993. How did you receive the call?
On teletext. The normal way, 11 o'clock on a Sunday, the week before. So teletext to say that you've been selected for the one days and the test series. 5 tests.
Fantastic. So for younger viewers, it's a bit like the internet, but it was on your telly, and you could.
A bit like the internet was on your telly, yes.
How did you feel when you got the call?
No, elated. It had been a busy 12 months actually. I'd been to Australia on the A Tour with Mark Lathwell, who was one of the tourists, and Graham Thorpe. Jack Russell was another player on that tour, the A Tour to Australia. So yeah, it had been a busy 12 months, and then obviously coming back into the summer, bowled quite well down in Australia, and lucky enough got a call up early on.
And you mentioned Mark Lathwell. Obviously, he was in the squad as well. So to have two Somerset players in the England squad was great for us, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I still rate Mark as probably one of the best batters I've ever bowled at. Whether he was at, he was thankfully on our side, Somerset side, but I still rated him as one of the successes of Somerset. But unfortunately, it didn't go on, and unfortunately for Somerset and the team as a whole, he went on to better things. He didn't feel that cricket after, which I thought was a short career with Somerset, was for him. So, but I think Somerset missed out there and England missed out there. So he was a talented player.
He's still spoken about in extremely high regard by supporters, isn't he? And he was a pleasure to watch.
Oh, phenomenal batsman. And one of the key things for Mark was, and it seems to be with top world batters, he played the ball very late. He saw the ball very early. It's a funny phrase to say, but he saw the ball very early out the hand, picked up the length very quickly, and he played the ball late, which is why he was a phenomenal player. And unfortunately for England and Somerset, it didn't go on.
Moving back to the Ashes, obviously getting the call up for England is big, but getting the call up for England against Australia in Ashes series is almost a level above, isn't it?
It is, and it was a very strong character. How do you say? There is a very strong team. England team then was a very strong characters in that team. Robin Smith, Graham Gooch, just to name a few. Hick. We also had De Freitas as bowling, and so there was a lot of strength in that team. There's a lot of experience in that team. But we were playing against then, back in '93, a very strong, talented Australian side, and they were good. They were very good.
Let's look back at that first series, a bit of a baptism of fire. When you've got someone like Steve Waugh coming in at 6 or 7, you get one out and another one equally as good comes back in. It was always going to be really tough, wasn't it?
It was always going to be tough. I had my first international group was thankfully on the first test. It was Alan Border caught and bowled, and I didn't get another wicket for the rest of the series. It was difficult. It was a baptism of fire, as I say, and you were playing against some very talented Australian players, and also the pressure that you had from the press, because I had a very good, as I said, 12 to 18 months prior to that series, both for Somerset and England on the A Tour. And there was a lot of pressure put onus on me. In fact, I remember one of the headlines was England's Great White Hope, and I just sat there. That was labelling me prior to the Test series. So the press put their own pressure on you, but not only was that pressure from the press, but it was also from the opposition. So a big baptism of fire.
Now, we mentioned it was a formidable Australian side. You knew it was going to be tough, but were they even better than you thought they were going to be?
Yes, in a nutshell. You had Shane Warne in his first Test series, bowling that magic ball first delivery. I'm still sitting there thinking, "Gat, you should have kicked it." But that's just the standards that they set themselves. The two Waugh brothers, Taylor. You had Merv Hughes in that team, and there was a lot of experience in that side. Even with Alan Border, Mark Taylor. So, and at the top of the order. So you had a lot of experience against an Australian side who were doing well. They were world beaters at that stage. They were beating everyone, and at that stage the Ashes series was on. It was a difficult series for me. I think I was dropped for the last Test series, or shall I say the last Test, and it knocks you. It knocks you a little bit. It knocks your confidence. But thankfully, because I then came back and played quite well for Somerset, I managed to get on a tour of the West Indies.
Obviously, that winter, I don't believe you featured in that tour, but when Australia were back for 1997, once again you were involved in that and were the leading English wicket taker that series.
Yeah, had a good series, but after that series, my first 93, then we went to the West Indies in 94. So I think I was leading wicket taker out the West Indies that series as well. So I sort of propelled myself forward. I had a bit of an injury scare with my shin splints, which caused a few issues for the next 2 years after that series, with various operations to sort those out. But yeah, it was then came back in and luckily got that Test call up for the next series against Australia. So and I think it was 97. So we started well. We started very well at Edgbaston. I think we bowled the Australians out for 140 odd in the first innings, and I think we won that Test, and then it went downhill from there. So unfortunately, they're a strong side, and you may give them an inch, but they'll always take a mile. So they're a very difficult team. Even back in 97, 99, they're a very good difficult team.
Now, although you're the leading wicket taker in the series, you were left out in favour of Mike Smith for the fourth Test. That must have been slightly frustrating.
It was. And it goes back to the era when, unfortunately, and I may be a little bit politically incorrect for saying this, but we go back to the era when if you did well as a player, whether you're a bowler or a batter, in a summer, the selectors decided that gave them the onus to actually pick them for a one day or a Test series, a Test match, regardless of whether they thought you were good enough or not, or you had that international pedigree. So it was that was difficult for me, because I just sat there and thought, well, yeah, Mike Smith's not a bad county bowler, but and he has a very good county record. But I just felt that it was a bit of a kick in the guts, because I thought I'd done well enough, and for me, I felt my attributes were far better than Mike Smith's at the time.
Then the winter of 98 obviously took 100 wickets again for Somerset that year, and that was deemed not good enough to get you on the plane again.
No, it was a difficult one, because I remember we were playing here against Worcester, and the team was announced, and both myself and Graham Hick were not on that tour party, and Graham had a very good summer that summer as well. So I ended up with 105 first class wickets, and unfortunately for me, Courtney Walsh beat me by one, so he had 106, but didn't make the tour, which was bitterly disappointing. But I look back now and I said to myself, well, it was a learning curve for me. I had to do better, and it put me in good stead for the future. But I was very happy I wasn't playing down at Hobart, that warm-up match, which I think the England bowlers toiled for a day and a half trying to bowl the opposition out, and I think that was a hard Test match for them as well, Test series.
2002, 2003, Australia won again, unfortunately, which was the story of it. It seemed fairly pointless to go by that stage. But again, you were the leading wicket taker with 20 wickets in that series. Obviously, Australia dominated and won the first 4, but England won the final Test quite comfortably. But you had a particularly good game, taking 10 wickets in the match.
Well, it wasn't a bad series for me. We unfortunately, Nasser and Brisbane decided to bowl first when everybody was telling them to bat first, so that sort of put pressure on us as bowlers. Came out of that quite well. Went to Adelaide. Unfortunately for me, I twinged a back, maybe a disc, which put me out of the rest of that Test match. And also, because we were back-to-back at Perth, it put me out of the Perth Test match. If I had probably a week's week between that Test and the Perth Test match, I think I would have made the Test match at Perth. Unfortunately I didn't, and that was a Test match that Chris Silver took over for me, went over in his ankle, and also Alex Tudor got hit in the head by Brett Lee bowling at about 98 mile an hour. So we were knocked back a bit. Went on to the MCG, and we came back fighting quite well, and in fact they were needing about 100 or 90 or 100 to win that game. We got them 5 down, and there was a good buzz at that stage as well. The Barmy Army really enjoyed the MCG at Melbourne and Sydney because of the tests, should I say, the Christmas period. So we had a lot of Barmy Army there, it sort of set itself up for a final finale, which we needed to do something, and thankfully that test match, it's all sort of compiled together. The batters got runs and the bowlers took wickets for England, and we outplayed the Australians in that test. If you look back now and you think, if we'd only started the test series and we started playing at the MCG around Christmas and New Year, it might have been a different outcome. We started slow, but we slowly built up momentum. But yeah, it was a great test, and at the end of that test series, to see the Barmy Army actually win a game for the Barmy Army at Sydney. I think there was about 4,000 or 5,000 Barmy Army there. So for them, it was a good day's cricket.
Was that your best performance for England, do you think?
It was my last performance for England, and my last, the only 10 for in a test match I obtained. Best performance, one-off test, but then I could compare it to the West Indies in 2001 at Lords and then Headingley. That period for about 3 years when I really felt comfortable, I enjoyed my cricket, enjoyed bowling, had a really good relationship with Nasser and Duncan. In fact, the relationship was just like playing for Somerset. It was just Nass threw me the ball and just said, "Get on and bowl." And the relationships in the dressing room back then, they were very honest relationships. Honest in the fact that we could actually, have a go at each other. It was constructive criticism, but it was always for the better of the game, the better of the team. So, and players got to understand each other's pros and cons. Each other's individuals' pros and cons. So we really gelled as a team then. I think that was a catalyst from what went on to 2005 for the Ashes, winning the Ashes series in 2005.
Is it a bittersweet memory that for you? I mean, almost single-handedly destroying that Australian batting lineup, but then it being your last game?
Yeah, it's just an unfortunate turn of events. As I said, in Adelaide, I went on the back. We flew. After that test match from Adelaide, we flew directly to Perth. We only had 4 days before the next test, and I ended up being a pin cushion for 2 days where they were injecting my back, trying to get me fit, bowling every day after that. And for me, it was the start of something that was, the start of the end for my back, basically. I was injury free from when it was at 95 to 2003, so I had 8 years of no injuries whatsoever, and that was a pretty hectic period of cricket, both for Somerset and for England. So there was always going to be something going to happen, and I think that the gremlins were starting to show at Adelaide. And then unfortunately, when I came home, unfortunately the disc completely went then, and then I was out of the game for 18 months. So difficult. But I still felt, even then, in 93, 94, that I was still the best bowler in the English county. A seasoned bowler, should I say. We had the likes of Harmison coming through, Hoggett had taken his place, Jimmy Anderson was just coming onto the scene, and you had a really good a nucleus of young talent coming through. And I always knew that I didn't have a God-given right to just walk back on the team. And in fact, the selectors said, if you are ready and you have proven your fitness again, we will seriously consider you coming back into the side. And that's what was driving me on, the fact that my England career was still not over. But the nail on the coffin for me was when I was playing at Bath, and a certain bowler from Kent was selected ahead of me, and that sort of showed that maybe my days were over. And it's just one of those things that happens in your career. But even to the point of 97, when we won the second division championship, there was nearly a blatant call-up for me to cover one of the bowlers in the Test series then, and I thought it was a joke at the time. I thought it was a bit of a joke for me coming on, and Justin Langer was telling me, no, you've been selected to, you may have to go down the motorway. We're playing at Notts at the time, and so 2007 could have been my penultimate last Test, but wasn't to be. So we just trudged on and won the championship, second division championship at Somerset, and the rest is history.
Obviously, you've had a fabulous career for England, but is maybe not getting your hands on that urn your biggest regret in the game?
Yeah, that, and also not only of playing 62 tests. You know, if I'd have been in and out the side early on, if they just settled with me, put a bit of faith in me, and just allowed me to bowl the way I normally bowl for Somerset, and kept that going. You know, for me, I would love to have played 100 tests for England. I would love to have that 100th cap, and also for me to have bowed out of cricket. Bowed out of English cricket, not should I say playing for England, the international scene, when I wanted to bow out, not when I was not selected to. So that's always a bit of a gremlin in the back of my mind, that I didn't have that choice. But unfortunately that's Test cricket, that's English Test cricket, and those were the selectors at the time.